So we are, I put a, I haven't gone through this in a while. We don't have anybody new, but we all know about Dr. Lanza. Dr. Lanza, very unique. Without him, we would not have these teachings. And because he spoke the language, he lived the life of Jesus, and more than likely Abraham also. And so he's the guy that translated the Bible from Aramaic into English. And then Dr. Errico down here um, mentored with Dr. Lanza, and he mentored with Dr. Lanza for 10 years. And of course, he has carried it on, and we're kind of working at it too. But I thought it would be fun to show you this picture. Dr. Errico met Dr. Lanza in person for the first time in 1965. And you can see here that Dr. Errico was 25 to 27 years old when he met Dr. Lanza. And then he spent 10 years. Dr. Lanza moved to San Antonio, where Dr. Errico was, and he spent 10 years working with Dr. Lanza. So I just thought it would be fun to emphasize this a little bit. Okay, so tonight, hold on just a minute. I have an echo again. Just a second. Okay, we'll go on. Okay, so we are at Genesis chapter 49. And last time we looked at Jacob blessed his two grandsons, which were Joseph's sons. And we learned that he was ill and he was getting ready to die. So traditionally, the patriarchs would call their children together, and in this case, Jacob called his sons, said to them, "Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and listen, O sons of Jacob, and hearken to Israel, your father." Now, remember, Jacob was a seer, a prophet of sorts, and so this is his revealing the plan, the divine plan. So the Lord God had revealed the divine plans for the salvation of humankind to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He had assured them that by their seed, all the nations of the world would be blessed. He also revealed to them what was to take place after that. So the next few verses talk about what's going to happen to his sons. Okay, so let's start with Reuben. You are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength. and the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Okay, now, however, you got to go back and remember what we what we learned. You went astray like water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. Truly, you have defiled my bed by going up into it. And so, what they're saying here, and we studied it, is that, well, actually, let's look at this. Reuben's name, remember, he's the firstborn son to Leah, not Rachel. And his name meant, behold, a son, because Leah was grateful to have a son and had hoped that Jacob would like her better than Rachel. Okay, now, but Reuben, remember, he was jealous of his brothers, and he was jealous, and he laid with Bilhah, was Rachel's handmaid. And remember, the reason he was jealous is because Jacob, his father, favored Joseph as his firstborn to Rachel, even though Reuben was his real firstborn. Okay. And now he says, Simon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of anger are in their nature. I never agreed to their counsels, nor did I lower myself to sit in their assembly. For in their anger they slew men, and in their rage they destroyed a town wall. Cursed be their anger, for it is raging, and their wrath, for it is fierce. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Now, so to understand this, we go back again. Remember, Simon and Levi were the ones that deceived and killed the people of Shechem because they had defiled their sister Dinah, whatever you call it. And so, uh, what Jacob is saying now is, all right, basically what happened is, I think originally Simon got some land, but basically he did not have any land of his own. And what technically was assigned to him got absorbed by Judah. And so, and Levi, you will notice there's no tribe with Levi, but ironically, okay, the Levites, the tribe of Levi became the priestly tribe under Moses. So that doesn't make any sense, but that's what he's saying. And that is what happened. Okay, and the most significant person we will study here in this sequence is Judah. Okay, Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you are gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as a young lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter, which is the staff, shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until the coming of the one to whom the scepter belongs, to whom the Gentiles shall look forward. He shall tie up his foal to the vine, and his ass's colt to a branch. He shall bleach his garments with wine, and his robe with the juices of the grape. His eyes shall be radiant with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Okay, now we got a lot of um, a lot of seven keys cultural stuff in here. So let's look at them. Okay, the scepter, which is the staff, okay, It's a symbol of authority or leadership. Judah was the most brilliant among his 11 brothers. He was a gifted speaker and a statesman. And you remember that Judah is the one that that spoke on behalf of Benjamin, of them not of Joseph not keeping Benjamin there. So Judah, that was his significance there. Judah was second only to Joseph in wisdom and understanding. The tribe of Judah was to be the most important of the 12 tribes. Kings and lawgivers were to come forth out of Judah's descendants until the coming of the promised one, Jesus. Jacob, as a patriarch and a seer, saw the fulfillment of Israel's mission. His descendants were to rule until the coming of the great king, the Messiah, who was to establish a universal kingdom and become a light to the Gentiles and to the world in general. Okay, now we do have some more here. So he shall tie up his fall to the vine and his ass's colt to a branch. Mainly, it's just Judah and his descendants would make their living with vineyards. And vineyards were very plentiful in the area of Judah. He shall bleach his garments with wine and his robe with the juices of the grape. Again, it just means that Judah would inhabit a land graced with many vineyards. His eyes shall be radiant with wine. Means Judah will have plenty of wine to drink. Now, hold on, I've got this. Okay. In the Near East, those who have vineyards are use considerable wine at the table. In the ancient days, wine was used because of the lack of water. Our English term about an individual who is red-eyed has a negative meaning and refers to someone who has imbibed too much wine. Okay, just a little cultural thing carried forward. Okay, and his teeth white with milk. This means that Judah will have an abundance of flocks and plenty of milk. In biblical days, the economy was based on sheep, milk, wool, and other byproducts. Also, the main diet of the people consisted of milk, buttermilk, cream, cheese, and butter. And they possessed teeth that were pearly white and in good condition. Okay. Now we move on to Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea, and he shall be a haven for ships, and his border shall extend as far as Sinai. Issachar is a mighty man crouching by the highways. And he saw that his dwelling place was good and his land fertile, and he bowed his shoulder to servitude and became a servant to tribute. Now, I
I have
thought, yes, go ahead.
Issachar is a mighty man couching. Should that be crouching, or what does couching mean?
Well, I think it should be crouching also, but I couldn't find I couldn't find the equivalent road, and so I would say couching. Now, but I put the King James version in here. Well, not necessarily because of the couching, but I believe it should be crouching. Okay, but I put the King James thing in here just to once again kind of point out the 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 differences in translation and the benefit of having Dr. Lamsa uh, um, translating this stuff so that it makes sense. So, but in this case, all right, it would focus on the King James says that Issachar is a strong ass, okay, and couching down between two burdens. And basically, there's, you know, for me and for most people, there's really not too much meaning for that. But Dr. Lamsa translated, as we saw, except for the crouching, as a mighty man couching by the highways. So just to explain a little bit more about Aramaic and how these translations occurred. Okay, in Aramaic, okay, the word Gabarha means a mighty man. Now, in the Aramaic word for ass is Hamara. And so what happened with many of the translations that you find from the King James version to Dr. Lamsa's version is because letters, as it says, the letters Heth and Gomel resemble one another when placed before a word. So the error here in translation was created by the close similarity of the two Aramaic words. And this happened a whole lot. And why it didn't get translated like Dr. Lamsa is because Dr. Lamsa knew the context of of the story, of the situation, the words, and in the Near East, he also knew the culture. It would be repulsive to call a person an ass. At the same time, no father at his deathbed would call his son a dog, especially when he is blessing him before he departs this life. And I just put this in here because it's so relevant to the entire translation because there's like more than 12,000 differences. And it's just so relative and to understand why we have why we have these translation differences. Because and it is the other thing that you have to understand is that in classical Aramaic, every word can have anywhere from 2 to 5 or more meanings, just the word itself. And that's because the Aramaic that we have has what they call um, points. I call them dots, which are essentially vowels. Okay, and so you can take one word, and depending on where you place the dots or the vowels, it can mean several different things. But when you're translating from the scrolls, there were no dots. There was no system like that. And so if you did not know the context, which Dr. Monson did, if you didn't know the context, then you came out with translations like this. So I just thought I would mention that. I haven't mentioned that much since, well, since the introductory course. Okay. Then we go to Dan shall judge his people as if the tribes of Israel were one. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse's heel and causes its rider to fall backward. Symbolism here, symbolism and metaphors. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Okay, now the name Dan means to judge, okay? And remember, before Israel had kings, they had judges over. And so Dan was a judge over all Israel, as was Samson. And Samson was part of the Danite descendants tribe. But here's why he said that. The Danites, however, were an impulsive and intemperate tribe. They were like a serpent by the road and like an adder on the path. They were dangerous and unprincipled. When a snake bites a horse, the animal rears and the rider is thrown from his horse. Therefore, the Danite tribe is compared to the snake and adder. Interesting? I think it's very interesting. And if you want to see an example of what the Danites did, a story that demonstrates this, you can go to Judges 18, 7 through 29. Okay, and then we have Gad shall go out to raid and shall pursue at the heels of his enemy. As for Asher, his land is good, and he shall supply kings with food. Naphtali is a swift messenger. He gives goodly words. Now, there's several verses there you see I skipped over, and those have to do with Joseph. But we're going to move those to next week because we're going to finish up um, uh, Joseph and Genesis. So, but the other person is Benjamin. Remember, the youngest son of Rachel is a plundering wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and in the evening he shall divide the spoil. So Jacob knew his sons. Okay, he knew them, and this is what he. I mean, this is a prediction. You know, they're not in the land yet. They got lots to go before they get there. But all these are 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father Jacob said to them. He addressed them, that he blessed them. According to his blessing, he blessed every one of them. Then their father blessed them and charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. In the cave which is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the double cave which is in the field before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, the field which Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite as a possession for burial. So, okay. So I just thought this would be interesting. Now remember, they're not in the promised land now. This was Jacob's prediction as to how this would fall out. Now, I know this is kind of tiny here, but you can see now the difference. They talked about the 12 tribes and included Joseph, but when you look on this map, you will see that Joseph is not here because remember last week Jacob adopted Manasseh and Ephraim, and so Manasseh and Ephraim got land too, and this is how it all came out. Significantly, Judah is down here. Judah became the largest land, and of course, became the most important. And Judah is, of course, where Jerusalem and the Holy Land is. So, and you know, the next, you know, Exodus, and then all the Joshua battles and stuff. Then that's when they get here. But this is just a prediction by Jacob as to how it's all going to shake out. Okay, and so we're going to just go on here. Okay, there they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. Okay, the field and the cave is in it, which is in it, were purchased from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had finished charging his sons, he stretched his feet on the bed and grew weak and died and was gathered to his people. And essentially, That is an idiom. Stretched his feet on the bed is an idiom, and it just means he died. And when I was reading this, I just thought, how? Well, I guess we don't think it's nice to die, but just in the way he died, it's just we don't do that now. We have to have a cause, and we have to. But it's just kind of natural the way that they died, kind of like the Indians, when they were ready, they just died. So okay, so we're gonna do 50 and finish this up. So, and Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him. Okay, for so are fulfilled the days of those who are embalmed. And remember, this is Egypt. Um, this is not Canaan or Israel or Jewish. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if now I have found mercy in your eyes, speak in the presence of Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, saying, behold, I am dying in my grave, which I bought for myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. Now, therefore, see, Joseph is having to get permission, basically, to leave Egypt. And remember, we talked about last week or the week before how he swore with his father, and that's why. So, so now he's just saying, look, I swore to my father, now therefore let me go up and bury my father, and I will come back again. And Pharaoh said, go up and bury your father according as he made you swear. Okay, almost there. Now, so Joseph went up to bury his father. And this is really interesting too. And with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt. And that's how much they really respected Joseph. And all the household of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their little ones, their flocks, and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Attar, which is beyond the Jordan, and there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And Joseph made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning and the threshing floor of Attar, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Therefore, the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did to Jacob just as he had commanded them, for they carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the double cave, which is in the field which Abraham purchased with the field for a possession, for a burial ground for Ephron the Hittite, before Mamre. So Jacob has completed his mission. He was guided by God the whole way, which is the theme running through all of Genesis, is this guidance by God and carrying out his will. So that's as far as we're going with 50 right now. 50 is the last chapter. And let me show you this. Okay, I just found this little map. I just thought it would be interesting. Down here at the bottom where it says Hebron, however you want to pronounce it. is where just what they were talking about. That's where they ended up burying Jacob there, and of course Abraham, Leah, Rebecca, Isaac, Sarah were all there also, and of course I think this map is a little iffy myself, but because they have Egypt pointing out there, but Egypt is down here a little further, and so. But anyway, they didn't have that far to go. But it was a grand send off to Jacob by the Egyptians and his family. Okay, so we are done with Jacob, and next week we will finish Genesis and Joseph. Thank you all for your contributions. Very much appreciated.